Before we begin, from all of us at Untold Realm, may Krishna's blessings light your path this Janmashtami. If you'd like to experience this journey in Hindi, head over to our new channel, Untold Realm Hindi. The link is in the description below. Now, some stories are told, some are written in scriptures, and then there are those whispered between the lines. This Janmashtami, we don't revisit what you already know. We uncover what's often forgotten. What kind of curse could give birth to a tyrant like Kansa? Why did 6 infants perish before Krishna could take his first breath? And how did a demoness try to kill a god by pretending to nurse him? Who was the serpent that turned the Yamuna toxic? And why did death always seem one step behind the boy with the flute? These are not just tales. They are the shadows that followed Krishna before the world knew his name. Hey fam, we are Untold Realm, where myths, legends, and forgotten history come alive in ways you've never heard before. And today, we take you through the mysterious lives that surrounded the divine child. Not the god, but those who came for it. Chapter 1. Kansa, the tyrant born from a curse. In the kingdom of Mathura, celebration echoed through the royal corridors. Prince Kansa had just returned victorious from battle. His sister Devaki was to be married to the noble Vasudev, but beneath the laughter and festivity, destiny had already set its trap. As Kansa lovingly escorted Devaki and Vasudev to their carriage, a chilling voice from the heavens broke the joy. Kansa, the very 8th child of this sister you adore, will be the cause of your death. This was no ordinary prophecy. This was Akashvani, a divine proclamation that shook the core of the proud warrior. But what made Kansa so feared? What made the cosmos whisper his end before his story had even begun? To understand this, we must go further back. Kansa was not an ordinary child. According to certain ancient texts and oral traditions, his birth itself was wrapped in mystery and consequence. He was said to be the reincarnation of an asura named Kalanemi, a fierce demon who was slain by Lord Vishnu in a past yuga. But this wasn't the end of his tale. Before his death, Kalanemi had been cursed by the sage Kalemi, a curse that echoed across births. The sage had warned, "In your next life, your arrogance will destroy you. You will be born into royalty, but your end will come from within your own family." And so Kansa was born, intelligent, fearless, powerful, and yet dangerously arrogant. Raised in the royal court by King Ugrasena, he mastered politics and warfare, but he never mastered his own ego. Over time, he dethroned his own father and crowned himself the king of Mathura. He ruled with iron fists and iron laws, alliances with powerful asuras, suppression of sages and devout, and the slow erosion of dharma. But here lies the deeper question. Out of all the Adharmic rulers, why was it Kansa who invited divine intervention? Because Kansa's rule wasn't just tyrannical, it was cosmically destabilizing. His growing power, his alliance with Jarasandh and other dark forces, and his targeting of sages and devotees created a spiritual imbalance, one that threatened the fabric of righteousness across Bharata. His karma, layered across lifetimes, had matured into a storm the universe could no longer ignore. And as Kansa's cruelty grew, so did the weight of his karma. What began with a curse had now set the wheels of destiny in motion. A tyrant had risen, and the universe had begun preparing its answer. Chapter 2. Devaki and Vasudev, the chosen vessels of destiny. Before Krishna's birth lit up the pages of myth, the stage was already being prepared. Not just with curses and tyrants, but with 2 souls destined to carry a divine burden. Devaki and Vasudev weren't ordinary mortals. In ancient texts, they are said to be the rebirth of Aditi and Kashyapa, the divine pair who once gave birth to Lord Vamana in the Treta Yuga. And just like then, in Dwapar Yuga too, they were chosen. But destiny doesn't choose easily. Devaki, a princess turned prisoner, shackled by the very brother who once adored her. And Vasudev, a king of Dharma, who stayed calm even as each of his sons was slaughtered before his eyes. Why were they tested so cruelly? Perhaps because only unshakable faith could withstand the terror Kans would unleash. Or perhaps the universe was setting the stage for a birth so powerful that even suffering became sacred. It is said that Krishna's elder brother, Balarama, was mystically transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's, hidden from Kansa's wrath, by none other than Yogmaya herself. And that on the night of Krishna's birth, the chains unlocked, the guards slept, and a supernatural stillness fell upon the prison. Was it the will of God? Or were they simply chosen because their pain would not bend their faith? Their story, steeped in sacrifice and silent devotion, laid the foundation for a destiny far greater than they knew. But while they waited in silence, far from the prison walls, other forces were rising. For Krishna's arrival would not just change their lives, it would awaken ancient powers, forgotten beings, and untold bonds hidden deep in the folds of time. Chapter 3. The six who were doomed to die. Before Krishna ever opened his eyes in this world, 6 children were born to Devaki, and each was mercilessly killed by Kansa. To most, it appears as nothing more than a tyrant's fear of a prophecy. But ancient texts suggest something far more haunting, a karmic reckoning that had been set in motion across lifetimes. These 6 infants were not just innocent lives, they were the sons of Kalanemi, a powerful asura who once stood against Vishnu in a forgotten age. Kalanemi was slain by Vishnu, and like all beings caught in the web of karma, he too was bound to return. His sons were cursed, not by enemies, but by their own grandfather, the fearsome Hiranyakashipu. In a moment of wrath, Hiranyakashipu declared, "You, my own blood, will be reborn, only to be slain by the hands of your father in another life." Why such a cruel curse? Because these sons, once known as the Sadgarbhas, chose to worship Lord Vishnu. They sought liberation, they sought light. And for Hiranyakashipu, who had waged war against Vishnu, this was an unforgivable betrayal. Cursed for their devotion, doomed for their past, the Sadgarbhas were reborn as the 6 sons of Devaki. But the curse didn't stop there. In a stunning twist of fate, Kansa, the killer of these 6, was none other than Kalanemi reborn. Without knowing, he was fulfilling a prophecy and a curse laid upon himself. With each child he killed, the cycle turned. One death for each betrayal, one act of violence for each past defiance. And as the 6th child's cries were silenced, something in the fabric of destiny shifted. The 7th child would not die. He would vanish, transferred by divine hands, protected by Yogmaya. Because what came next would not be born of karma, but of purpose. And yet it leaves us wondering, was it really Kansa's fear that drove the killings? Or was it the ancient curse, slowly consuming the cursed? Chapter 4. The Divine Deception. Balarama and Yogmaya. Before Krishna's birth could change the fate of the world, another divine maneuver was already in motion, one that most people overlook. Devaki had conceived her 7th child, but before Kansa could strike again, something unusual happened. Without any physical intervention, the child disappeared from her womb. It was no miscarriage, it was a celestial transfer. The unborn child was Balarama, an avatar of Sheshnag, the serpent who forms Lord Vishnu's resting place. By divine will, Balarama was mystically transferred into the womb of Rohini, another wife of Vasudev, who was living in secrecy in Gokul. This incredible event wasn't just divine protection, it was part of a larger cosmic alignment. Krishna and Balarama were destined to grow up together, brothers raised by love, far away from the blood-stained hands of Kansa. But what about the 8th child, the one prophesied to end Kansa? It was a girl, or so it seemed. The moment Kansa tried to kill the newborn, the child slipped from his grasp and rose into the air, manifesting as Yogmaya, a fierce divine energy often associated with Durga herself. With many arms, glowing eyes, and a voice that thundered across the kingdom, she warned Kansa, "The one destined to end your tyranny has already been born and is safe." And just like that, she vanished. This wasn't just a divine trick, it was Leela, the divine play of cosmic forces, where illusion and reality dance together. The girl child wasn't Kansa's sister, as is often misunderstood. She was not born from Devaki in the conventional sense, but placed in the womb by divine plan, a force of protection, a messenger of fate. While Kansa was consumed by fear and confusion, far away in Gokul, Krishna was already there, hidden in plain sight, playing in the lap of Yashoda, and the countdown to his destiny had begun. Chapter 5. Trinavarta, the demon of illusion. They said the skies suddenly darkened that day. No wind, no clouds, just a swirling rising dust, like the earth had exhaled a curse. Krishna, still an infant, was playing outside when it happened. And then, he vanished.
What the villagers didn't know was that Trinavarta had arrived. Sent by Kansa, yes, but this wasn't just any Asura. Trinavarta was the demon of illusion, a force of deceit and deception. He didn't fight with brute strength. He didn't roar or claw like the others. He came as wind, storm, and suffocation, an invisible assassin. They say he lifted Krishna high into the sky, hoping to crush him with altitude and blindness, separating the divine from earth. But the story hides something deeper. Some scriptures whisper that Trinavarta had once served a powerful Yaksha king, a being who controlled illusions and storms in the Himalayan belt. After defying celestial orders, Trinavarta was cursed to wander as a force of blindness, never seen, never remembered. Kansa found him and offered a way out. End the 8th child, and you will be freed from your shapeless form. But when Trinavarta tried to fly higher, something happened. The weight in his arms grew heavier and heavier until his wind form cracked. The baby in his arms wasn't just surviving. He was anchoring him to earth. The sky that had once obeyed Trinavarta rejected him. By the time his body crashed into the ground, the illusion had broken. Not just his, but Kansa's too. Because now the enemy wasn't hiding. The child was real, and his power was growing. But here's the thread no one follows. Was Trinavarta simply another pawn? Or was he trying to remove Krishna from Earth? Not to kill, but to protect him from a fate even darker. Chapter 6. Kaliya, the poisoned waters of Yamuna. They say even the river stopped breathing. Once sacred and life-giving, the Yamuna turned black. Villagers whispered of birds dropping mid-flight, cows collapsing without reason, and a stench in the air that smelled like death and deceit. At its center, a whirlpool. Silent. Still. Until it moved. Kaliya, a serpent so venomous that even his breath could corrode stone. Banished from Ramanaka Dwip, the island of serpents, Kaliya had slithered into Yamuna's waters to escape Garuda, the celestial bird and his sworn predator. But the river wasn't just a hiding place. It was a prison Kaliya poisoned, twisting life around him into silence. When Krishna heard of this, he didn't just walk to the river. He danced into danger. Leaping into the whirlpool, the boy vanished. The village held its breath. What they saw next would be etched in eternity. A divine boy, standing dancing on the heads of a 1,000-headed serpent. Each step crushed ego, each rhythm tamed rage. But here's what many forget. Kaliya didn't die. Krishna instead spared him. Why? Because some say Kaliya wasn't just a demon, but a cursed protector. One legend claims that Kaliya was once a Naga prince who had dared to challenge Indra, believing humans were draining nature's essence without reverence. For this arrogance, he was cursed to become toxic, to turn sacred water into poison wherever he fled. Another forgotten tale says Kaliya was cursed to watch his own children die if he ever struck first. So he hid, fought only when cornered. And when Krishna danced upon him, he surrendered not in defeat but in relief. A god had arrived who didn't want blood, but balance. And perhaps that's why Krishna left him alive, to remind the world that even poison can be purified, if met with grace. But what if Kaliya wasn't the threat, but a warning? What if his arrival was a message from the Nagas? That something darker was rising beneath the waters of time. Chapter 7. Radha, the soul behind the flute. Radha was never crowned a queen, yet her name is always spoken before Krishna's. Radha Krishna, 2 names, 1 divine essence. She isn't mentioned in the Mahabharata, but in every bhajan, every temple, every heart that seeks love, she is there. Radha is not just a character in Krishna's story. She is the soul in it, the silent melody behind every note of Krishna's flute. In the forest of Vrindavan, their bond wasn't bound by marriage or rituals. It was bound by bhakti, devotion that transcended lifetimes. Her presence doesn't need pages, because it lives in every devotee's longing. When Krishna left for Mathura, Radha stayed in Vrindavan, not because she was forgotten, but because her love never moved an inch. She became the stillness in his journey, the heartbeat he carried, always. Poets called her Mahabhava, the highest form of divine love. Where Krishna is the Lord, Radha is his mirror, pure, patient, eternal. And maybe that's the most beautiful mystery of all, that in a world of wars and kingdoms, it is Radha who made the Lord of the universe feel love. And so, in every demon that tried to end him, in every life that was reborn just to meet him, Krishna's story was never just his own. It was a tale stitched together by curses, devotion, vengeance, and an unseen hand guiding them all. If even the gods needed to wait for the right moment, perhaps our own chaos isn't without purpose. This world is full of strange things, and you're watching Untold Realms.